Hello and welcome to this tutorial on effects in 3D scenes. In this tutorial, we're going to talk about two different types of effects that we can put in 3D scenes, and we are also going to demonstrate them. So let's get started. So the first type of effect is the sunshine effect. Now, this can be used to show the time of day, for example, morning, noon, dusk, and night. And it can also be used to show shadows at different times of day. Now, the particle effects can be used to create these type of animations such as fire, fireworks, rain, smoke, fountains, and snowfall. So let's demonstrate the sunshine effects first of all. We're going to open the CBD workspace. We're going to add the building data set into a spherical scene. We're then going to turn on the sun effects. We're going to go into building layer, enable shadow, and display all shadows. And finally, we're going to adjust the timeline under the trajectory to view the sun effects at different times. So let's go ahead and follow these steps. So there we have our 3D workspace open, and we're going to go to our building data set, and we are going to load it into a new spherical scene. We're going to say add to new spherical scene. Now we're going to zoom into it and take a look at our layer. So there's our scene, and now we have to give it some time to load since it's a very intensive 3D modeled scene, and it is going to take a lot of 3D hardware power to load this scene fully. Now we're going to go ahead and toggle the sun effects on and off using this toggle button under the scene tab. So let's say we turn it off and we turn it back on again. So there we have it, we have turned it back on. Now we're going to go and enable some shadows. We're going to say right click on the layer, we're going to say enable shadows and display all shadows. Now as we can see that we have some detailed shadows right here, and we can change the trajectory from the button below the toggle button of the sun effects to change the time of day. So if we move this seek bar to the left, we're going to have nighttime, and then we can move it towards the right. As we move to the right, we go to dusk, morning, midday, and then we move to afternoon, and then evening, and then night again. So this is how this works with sun effects and shadows, and you can adjust it according to your own preference. Right, so let's move on to particle effects. Now, just like the sunlight effects, we're going to demonstrate this by means of an exercise. We're going to start off with opening the CBD scene and locating the water area. We're then going to create a new CAD dataset named particle and confirm its coordinate system is consistent with others. This is very important. The third step is to add the particle dataset into the CBD scene and set the layer to be editable. Next, we choose the fountain, which is inside the particle objects collection under the draw menu. Number 5 is to click in the scene and add one or more foundations. Finally, we modified the object setting by right-clicking on it and selecting properties. So let's go ahead and demonstrate this within iDesktop. Right, so here we have our CBD scene open, and we are going to go ahead and we are going to zoom into the water layer. There. Let's locate it a bit properly. There we go. We're going to get like a frontal view of this water scene. That looks better. So we can work here. So we're going to go ahead and we are going to create a new data set, and this is going to be a CAD data set, and we are going to call it particles. And we're going to say OK. So there we have our particle CAD set, and we are going to go to its properties and make sure that its coordinate system is the same as the other ones, which we see that it is. So let's drop it onto our scene here. And once that is done, we're going to go under draw, and we're going to go under particle objects, and we're going to select fountain. And then let's say we want to draw 3 fountains. One over here, one here, and let's say one more over at this end. So there we go. We have our 3 fountains drawn and rendered. Now we're going to select one of them and we're going to say properties. And this is the particle object management window. So the particle and the emitter have their own properties that we can change. So let's go and change some of these things. Let's say under particle objects, and let's say we want to change this first setting to 2 and change the other one to 2 as well. So you can see that it's a bit wider than the other ones now. So let's change this to 40. So you can probably make out that it has changed. So we're going to go into emitter and we're going to change the offset angle and see what happens. So the offset basically spreads or narrows the particles that are being emitted from that point there. So we're going to go under emitter again, and under emitter we're going to change the emission rate. So with the emission rate, what it does is that it increases the number of particles that are coming out of there. As you can see, that the width of this fountain is much more than the other ones. So please go ahead and play around with these settings on your own and open up the help document and see what more you can do with these so that you're more familiar with all of them. We will now move on to the tree example for particles. What we're going to do in this demonstration is that we are going to start off by opening the Cherry workspace, which is found under the installation directory. We will then open the YHS scene and hide the YHPL Cherry layer. That will be followed by creating a new CAD dataset, which will be named particle as before, and we will make sure that its coordinate system is consistent with the others. We will then add the particle dataset into our scene and set the layer to be editable. We will choose snow under particle objects, and we will draw a polygon in the scene to add an area for the cherry rain. And finally, we will go into its properties in order to modify its setting. Now, before we get into it, let's take a look at the settings windows. Now, this is the particle object manager or the settings windows. So under particle objects, we have the position settings. Under individual particles, we can change the height and the width of the particles, and we can apply a custom texture to them and we can change their types. Under force, what we can do is we can apply a random force and we can change the number of particles in it. We can also change what size those particles are going to be. Under effects, we can change the angle of the effects, from which angle those effects are going to show up and at what speed are they going to show up. Finally, under emitter, we can change the emission rate, the rate at which those particles are going to be produced, and we can change their emitter direction as well. This means from the start of the emission point, where do the particles actually go to? So let's get right into it and demonstrate all these settings. Right, so we have our Cherry workspace open over here, and we're going to go under scenes and open up our YHS Cherry scene. And our next step is to hide the YHPL layer, which is the particle layer, as you can see. Now we will create a new data set called particles like we did before. So we're going to say new data set, CAD, let's call it particle. Right. We'll say OK. Right, so there we go. Now we're going to change its coordinate type. Let's go to properties, coordinate, copy from dataset, and we're going to say OK. And we have the WGS 1984, which is the same as all the other layers. And we're going to drop this onto our scene here. So let me talk about changing the coordinate system. What we did was that we tried to drop it onto our scene without first changing the coordinate system, and this is the error that it threw out. It said, dataset particle cannot be added to spherical scene because it is in planar coordinate system, which is different from the other datasets in our current scene. So let's go ahead with this. And we're going to draw a polygon here. Let's get a better view. Let's say we want it around this place. Right. There we have our snow. We're going to shorten it up a little. Let's say we're going to centralize it there, like that. And we also want to shorten it up, bring it down a little. Here we are. So that looks alright. So what we're going to do is that we're going to change some settings here. We are going to go into particle. We can keep this as snow. We're going to enable costume, and I'm going to say Sakura open. It's going to change to that. But that isn't really what we want. So we're going to change some more settings. Let's say we're going to make this 5. Make this 5. And we're going to change the particle count to a mere 500, let's say. And that looks a lot better. So we're going to go under force. And let's say we're going to change the size a little bit more, and we're going to say 11. There we are. And we're going to go into emitter, and we're going to change the emission rate to 40, and we're going to change the initial speed to 15 and 15, and we're going to leave the rest as they are. Right, so we have brought our first particle to really the height of the tree here, and now we're going to go ahead and we're going to create another particle. We're going to right click on particle objects, and we're going to say add particle. Now for this one, we're going to change the texture to Sakura 2. Let's say open. We're going to set height and width as 4 and 4, and particle count as 500. We are going to set the emission rate as 40, initial speed as 15 and 15, and we're going to make sure that the z value is minus 100. And now we're going to centralize it. Make sure that it is right in the center of this tree here. So we have centralized it, and you can see here that it's quite a nice little effect going on there of the leaves falling. So this is where our tutorial on effects in 3D scenes comes to an end. Please practice what we have done in this tutorial so that you have a deeper understanding of these techniques. If you have questions, please turn to the help document or contact us directly. Thank you.